So last week was a review. This week we're jumping into new material. Chapter 5 covers the metric system. We use the metric system in healthcare because it's simple, it's accurate, and it's based on the decimal system, which if you remember from last week, we like the decimal system. It helps prevent medication errors. The basic units of measurement for the metric system are grams, liters, and meters. So if we are talking about solids or weights, we are talking about grams, and we write that with a lowercase g. If we are talking about liquids or volume, as we are talking about liters, we write that with a capital L. And if we're talking about length, we're talking about meters, which is written in a lowercase m. The decimal system is in multiples of 10. We just said that those basic units of measurement are grams, liters, and meters. If you didn't write that down, you should. You will see those over and over and over again. And then we work on prefixes for these. When you put the prefix together with the unit of measurement, you have words like milliliter, kilogram, centimeter, etc. So these are some examples of prefixes and suffixes. I know this sounds like medical terminology. So 67 milligrams. Milli is the thousandths place, grams is that base unit of weight. So 67 milligrams is 67 thousandths of a gram. I'm going to teach you an easier way to do it rather than multiplying by 1,000 or dividing by 1,000 or whatever, but this is the meaning of it. Milliliter is 1,000th portion of a liter. Kilogram is 1,000 grams. Deciliter is 1/10 of a liter, and a cubic millimeter, we're not really going to focus on that much here in math. We use this to count blood cells like in fixed volumes on slides. Again, we're not going to deal with that, but milliliter, kilogram, deciliter, milligram, all of that you will see repeatedly throughout the semester and your career in healthcare. So we talked about grams, meters, and liters. When we add that prefix, we add the letter or those letters to the base. So milligram becomes lowercase mg. Microgram becomes lowercase mcg. And milliliter becomes lowercase m, capital L. Arabic numbers are what we most commonly use. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0.5, all of that. Those are Arabic numbers. When we talk about meds, we don't use fractions. Remember, we said that we use decimals. So instead of 2/5 grams, we would use 0.4 grams. So when we're writing these out, the number goes before the unit of measure, like 2 liters, because we wouldn't say it's liters 2, we would say it is 2 liters. And a space goes between the number and the unit of measure, like 5 space mg for 5 milligrams. Leading zeros go before the decimal, so 0.4 milligrams, not just 0.4 milligrams, to reduce that possibility of error. And we do not use trailing zeros, like 2 milligrams, not 2.0 milligrams, or 1.5 liters, not 1.50 liters. We aren't really going to talk about the mu symbol in here, but I know your book says do not use cc in place of milliliters. cc and milliliters mean the same thing. We try not to use cc, but sometimes we still do, especially on syringes. So if you guys have started working with syringes and medical assistant, you might notice that a syringe may say 10 cc. And it means the same thing as 10 milliliters. We're not going to talk more about cc's in math class. Just know that in real life, if you go out into the field and you see a syringe that says like 10 cc's or 5 cc's, it's the same thing as milliliters. But in math, we're just going to continue using milliliters. And number 8 is avoid periods. These are, again, those rules of the metric system. I don't know that a period would be mistaken for a 1 unless you really wrote it terribly, but we don't use a period with our abbreviation. For example, we would not write 1 mg period, okay? We would just write 1 mg. And we use commas. I'm not a stickler on this. If you write 1000 as 1000 or 1,000, they're the same thing to me. They're the same thing when you write them in your assignments on Canvas as well. But the one thing I do want to say about the commas is make sure that it doesn't look like a period. Make sure your periods don't look like commas. I think that those are more easily mistaken than a period being mistaken for a 1. And then we also don't add a plural or an S at the end of our abbreviation. Like we would say 15 mg, we say that as 15 milligrams. We don't write it as 15 mgs, we just say milligrams. This is in your book. These are some of the more common abbreviations that you're going to see over and over and over again. You can write these down if you feel like you need to, but like I said, they're in your book and we're going to just continuously use them throughout the semester. So when we talk about units of measure, again, gram is the basic unit of measurement for weight. Milligrams and micrograms are multiple times smaller than a gram. 1 gram is 1,000 milligrams. 1 gram is 1,000,000 micrograms. Kilogram is the only unit that we typically use that's larger than the base unit gram when we measure weight. So 1,000 grams is 1 kilogram. 1 kilogram is 1,000 times larger than 1 gram. But again, I have an easier way to help you remember this. So write this down, okay? Write it exactly like this on the cheat sheet that I gave you. Kilo, hecto, deca, base, deci, centi, milli, and micro. This is going to help you with what's smaller and what's larger than the base. Remember that your base is grams, meters, and liters. So the way that this works is if I am converting kilograms to the base grams, I'm going to move the decimal to the right until I get to that base of grams. Okay. The reason that I have milli and then 3 places to micro is that we don't use anything between milli and micro. Always just remember that milli is 3 places to micro. Everything else on this chart is just 1 place between each unit. But please make sure that you have this written down. Write it in your cheat sheet, write it in your notes. I find this much easier than trying to remember when I need to multiply by 1,000 or 100, or when I need to divide by 1,000 or 100, or you know, things like that. This is much easier. And we're going to do some sample problems so that I can show you what I'm talking about. But make sure that you have this written down. So I also want you to take out your cheat sheet. You should have it out because you just wrote down what I had on the last slide. And find where it talks about pints and quarts. There's 2 places in the cheat sheet that talk about pints and quarts, the top box and the middle box, okay? You'll see that it says a pint is 2 cups or 16 ounces, and then it says that it's about 500 milliliters. When you do the math, 16 ounces is 480 milliliters. And it says that a quart is 4 cups or 2 pints or 32 ounces, and that is about 1,000 milliliters. When you do the math, 32 ounces is 960 milliliters. Anything that you have on an exam or an assignment or just in the medical world in general should be exact. We are not doing, you know, rough estimates, and I don't honestly know why your book put that information on there when it is just a rough estimate. It's not exact. So I am going to be looking for the exact amounts. So take a second up in the top box where it says a pint is 2 cups or 16 ounces, change that 500 milliliters to 480 milliliters. And then right below it, where it says 1 quart equals 4 cups equals 2 pints equals 32 ounces, and change that 1,000 milliliters to 960 milliliters. And then in that middle box where it says 1 pint equals 16 ounces, and then in parentheses it has 500 milliliters, change it to 480 milliliters. And then where it says 1 quart equals 32 ounces, and then in parentheses it has 2 pints, and then in parentheses it has 1,000 milliliters, change that to 960 milliliters. So one more time, 1 pint is 480 milliliters. 1 quart is 960 milliliters. Again, we're going to be measuring in exact. We are not going to be doing rough estimates. So converting means changing from one unit of measure to another. Okay. This chapter we're going to talk about converting within the same base unit, so milligrams to micrograms. We do this by moving the decimal. Each metric unit differs by 1,000 or 3 decimal places, so 1 kilogram equals 1,000 grams, 1 gram equals 1,000 milligrams, 1 milligram equals 1,000 micrograms, 1 liter equals 1,000 milliliters. But remember, if you go back to that slide, and hopefully you wrote it down in a few different places, we're going to just be moving the decimal rather than multiplying by 1,000 or dividing by 1,000 or whatever. So if you're going from smaller to larger, we're going to move the decimal to the left, and if we're going from larger to smaller, we're going to move to the right. So let's go through these sample problems together.
Okay, let's do these together. So if I have 400 milligrams, and I want to go to micrograms. I'm going to add that decimal point at the end since there's not already a decimal in it. And I'm going to go back to my little cheat sheet here. Okay, so if I look for milligrams, I'm here. And I want to go to micrograms, so I'm going to go 3 places to the right. So 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to add in my zeros. So I get 400,000 micrograms. So 400 milligrams equals 400,000 micrograms. And then B, I want to go 49 milliliters to liters. I'm going to pull this out again. There's my 49, my decimal there at the end. Okay, and I'm going to go milli to base, okay, because that's a base of liters. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 places to the left. 1, 2, 3 places to the left, okay, and that makes 0.049, and remember we need that leading zero, so 0.049. And then I'm going to do 3.75 liters to milliliters. Okay. I already have the decimal point there, so I don't need to add one at the end. And liters is a base, and I want to go to milliliters, so 1, 2, 3 places to the right. Add my zero, so 3,750 milliliters. And then I'm going to go kilograms to grams here, so 0.08 kilograms to grams. I already have my decimal point there, I don't have to add it. And here I'm going from kilo to my base of grams. Okay, so 1, 2, 3 places to the right. 1, 2, 3 places to the right, and I come up with 0080. I don't need those. This is just 80.
Okay, so that is our practice problems. So I'm going to walk you through doing this, this case study, some more sample problems. So our patient, Mr. Hain, is admitted to our unit from the emergency room with nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. We got in report from the nurse that he is going to come up to our unit. So we want to know his total output in milliliters. Output is just fluid that comes out of the body in one way or another. So here we have 250 milliliters of emesis, 0.65 liters of urine, and 140 milliliters of loose stool. So when we're calculating intake or output, we need to make sure that everything is in milliliters. So that's what we're going to do here with part A. So 250 milliliters, we're good. We're in milliliters. 0.65 liters needs to be converted to milliliters. So I'm going to give you a minute to convert 0.65 liters to milliliters. Okay, so if you move the decimal 3 places to the right, you end up with 650 milliliters of urine. And then we move on to 140 milliliters of loose stool, which is in milliliters, so we're good to go. Now I need to take my amount, so 250 milliliters plus 650 milliliters plus 140 milliliters. Okay, so that's part A. And then for part B, our patient is dehydrated, so the doctor orders some fluids. When we talk about fluid rates, we talk in the language of milliliters per hour. I'm going to say that multiple times throughout the semester. Your pump that we administer fluids on speaks in the language of milliliters per hour. When we get into some of the math stuff, which I'm sure you guys have noticed in your other math classes, there's always some fluffy things that we don't necessarily need as far as information goes. So here our doctor ordered 2 liters to be given at a rate of 250 milliliters per hour. I'm going to give you the information here since we're still early on in the semester. We don't need that 250 milliliters per hour rate for this specific question. We might need it in the future. For now, what I want to know is 2 liters of fluid, how many milliliters will the patient receive? So convert 2 liters to milliliters. And here are your answers from that. Now I'm going to have you correct these on your own. So these are all written incorrectly for some reason. Go ahead and correct them on your own. You can pause the video here and then restart it to view the answers. Okay, and here are your answers there. Here's another set of practice questions. These are actual conversions. Again, please pause the video while you solve these, and then once you've solved them, restart the video to move on to the answers. Okay, here's another set of practice problems. Again, please pause the video and then resume it for the answers. And another set of practice problems. Pause the video and then resume it for the answers. And then the last practice, this is a little bit more advanced. So the doctor prescribes 500 milligrams of a medication to be taken 4 times per day. How many milligrams per day is this? And how many grams per day is this? Pause and solve, and then resume for the answers. Okay, and that is it for chapter 5.